This is a very special late night broadcast, and I am so excited to introduce the Crowdsource the Truth audience to my next guest, Christopher Coles, a man who goes by Mr. Reagan on YouTube and is absolutely exploding the internet right now with what I find to be one of the most compelling viral videos that anyone has done in years. Chris, how are you tonight?
I'm great. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, and thank you so much for taking time out to speak with me. I know you're very busy now that the brains behind AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is literally going viral. It's at over 1.3 million views in just a few days, and it's not because you put cats in the video or you've done any kind of Tide Pod challenge, but instead you have shed light on what is sure to become one of the biggest political scandals of present times. Do you want to give people just a short overview for the few who maybe haven't seen the video yet?
Absolutely. Yeah. Normally I try to inject some comedy into these things, but in this one, I decided to do it pretty much straight because it was pretty dang important, I felt. So what I discovered, I was thinking about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I was watching videos on her. I did a video on my channel about this Now This video. They have these Now This videos that they produce, and they show some kind of funny little thing with like a cute music or whatever. And they did something on, AOC here, and it was pretty clever. And I thought, okay, that was a clever thing that AOC did, but she's not a clever girl. Like, she doesn't know anything about politics. So how did she pull that off? And I thought there's got to be somebody behind her. I went to CPAC like a week ago, and I was asking everybody, like, who's behind AOC? Who's behind AOC? And somebody pulls up his phone, a Politico article. He says, this guy. I looked at it. It was Saikat Chakrabarti. Politico had done an article on him. So I wrote his name down, went home, opened up the article, read through the article. Yeah, that was the article. That's the article that he showed me. And I went through and I watched every video I could on Saikat Chakrabarti, and that led me to, all the other guys. Corbin Trent is like his buddy. These two guys are now in her congressional office. Saikat is her chief of staff, and then the Justice Democrats, and then to the Young Turks, which I thought was kind of crazy. And in my video, I think I say that Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks is like the mastermind, which was what it looked like to me. But upon further research, I realized there's this guy, Zach Exley. And Zach Exley is like a Saul Alinsky style community organizer type. And he helped with the Bernie campaign, and that's where he met Saikat, and somehow he got this idea going. This is the guy. And this is the guy who, as far as I can see, was the first one to develop this idea to replace all the Democrats in Congress with these far left progressive types. And Saikat and Cenk Uygur seem to have taken this and just gone with it, right? And Cenk really promoted the hell out of this, and they got a lot of traction, and they got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez elected, and they got two other people I have in my notes here.
Well, it was Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib.
No, Ilhan Omar actually got her primary by herself. She actually ran by herself. They supported her after she won. The two that they got. So the really weird thing is that they got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez through like a casting call, right? As if it were like, and I've done some acting here in LA. I'm not really an actor, but
right.
They throw me into it because I'm so pretty. And I went through the acting process. I know what it's like to audition, and I make my little short films, and I audition people. And so that's what they did, like as if it were Big Brother or something, right? They brought some contestants in, and they found the people that had star power. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez clearly has star power. I mean, she's a star now. But the three that they got, I think, from the auditions, from what I can tell, is Ayanna Pressley, who just proposed this new drop the age to 16 for voting proposal. I don't know if you saw that.
Did not.
She didn't come up with that. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So this is my whole contention. My contention is that these guys brought in these candidates because they aligned with their views to some extent, but more importantly, they could control them. right?
Yeah.
They could control their votes, they could control their proposals in Congress, and they're trying to get as many people in Congress that they can control as possible.
Yes.
And I wasn't sure about the control bit. I knew that they had like strong influence, which is why nobody, a lot of people are dismissing this. A lot of people are like, well, this is not a big deal. Lots of people have influence in government. No. This is more than that. And I've talked to people since I put my video out. I've talked to people who are close to Justice Democrats, close to the Young Turks, and they've called me and said, look, I've been a part of this. I know these people. From the very beginning, it was all about controlling the candidates. They had the option to put up people that were strong leftists, right? Strong socialists, but they didn't think they could control them. Right. So they wouldn't put them up. They only put up the candidates that they could control. That's the narrative that I'm getting.
Right.
And that to me is more terrifying than anything.
Well, Chris, let me ask you this, because it seems like a lot of people have latched onto this aspect that AOC was picked out of essentially a reality show casting call. And although that seems unappealing, on the one hand, on the other hand, I mean, it is a popularity contest. We want people to vote. Someone might have looked at Donald Trump and said, hey, this is a guy who's on TV. He's got his reality show with The Apprentice. Everybody wants to be a billionaire. He's popular. We need to counteract Trump. Is there anything specifically illegal about holding a casting call to find a popular candidate who looks good and fits the right demographic, et cetera? Is that illegal?
No, and in fact, that part of it, well, I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you what's illegal and what's legal about any of this stuff. Right. I just kind of pulled the curtain back a little bit as I was just going through and doing research on SciCat.
Right.
So the thing that I think is a little bit nefarious is bringing in somebody who has zero experience in politics, doesn't know what she's talking about at all. So this is how they control her. This is how they control AOC. AOC is too naive about politics to be a congresswoman. She doesn't have the qualifications. She's not confident in going up there and proposing ideas and voting in at all. She's not confident with any of it. So she relies entirely on them, right? She's gone off script before to such an extent that she's embarrassed herself. She knows that she has to stay on script because these guys know what they're talking about. They're not right, but they know leftist politics better than she does. Right. So she can just defer to them about every single thing. Alexandria Rojas is one of the people that I think influence her significantly. Yep. I do think SciCat is like the guy. I think he's the guy that does most of this stuff. They wrote the Green New Deal. They'll tell you. I mean, Alexandria Rojas used to talk about it all the time in these videos that I saw. Mm-hmm. I think they wrote the Green New Deal. I don't think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. I think that they wrote this proposal about dropping the age of voter, voting rights or whatever. I think they wrote that for, I always forget this woman's name, Ayanna Pressley. Right. I think she proposed their ideas. So they're just mouthpieces. They're just figureheads for this group. Now, this group has talked about how they're going to put more candidates in 2020. They're going to put more candidates in 2022. They're going to keep doing it until they get as many people as they possibly can in there. And you don't want a third party that you did not elect controlling half of Congress.
Right.
That's not the way our democracy is supposed to run. And I don't think that the people of New York's 14th congressional district believed that when they voted in AOC, they were actually voting in an Indian guy from Fort Worth, Texas, and a white guy from Tennessee.
Right. Well, the thing I wanted to share with you, Chris, that I think might blow your mind is that as really excellent and complete as I thought your video was, I think you've just tapped the surface and it's far worse than you've even realized. Now, okay, so we've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we've got Ilhan Omar, we've got Rashida Tlaib. I wasn't aware of Representative Ayanna Pressley, but certainly there's a move in Congress to create diversity, introduce women, introduce people of color. I think we can all get behind that as America advances. We are a melting pot. We want to hear from everyone. But I feel like this is a bit of a Trojan horse because I agree with you. I think that Ocasio-Cortez, although she presents well, and as you've said, both you and I have dealt with actors in our careers, there are actors who are very skilled at remembering and presenting lines in a script, but could be totally ignorant of the subject that they're speaking of. You could be cast as a nuclear physicist in a movie, and you could read a script where you say all kinds of things about nuclear physics, but it doesn't mean
And I
that
sound
you're,
like a physicist.
right. It doesn't mean you're
Yeah.
really able to formulate a plan for how to, let's say, clean up Fukushima or something like that. So
I'm actually playing a NASA scientist in the
Yes.
shows coming up.
exactly. Yeah, well, that's perfect.
Really?
I want to share with you a document that I do believe will blow your mind, because people should really go and watch your video on the Mr. Reagan YouTube channel, and I hope that people will subscribe to Chris's channel. He's got a lot of good videos on there, and he's certainly very skilled at doing research and connecting dots. But I wanted to share with you this document. This is an explanatory memorandum from the archives of the Muslim Brotherhood, and you're going to notice it's got this government exhibit stamp on it. This was seized by the FBI in a raid in a home in Virginia, I think in 2004 or 2007. And it basically is the Muslim Brotherhood Manifesto. It's a plan for how they intend to infiltrate American society and create an Islamic caliphate in place of the democratic republic that we all enjoy now, or at least that we're told that we enjoy. I think people like you and I are fighting to hold on to the last threads of it. Let me read a little bit of this to you. It says, the process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, Muslim Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within, and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over other religions. Now, this is a lengthy document. People can Google an explanatory memorandum, PDF, and download this thing. But my fear, Chris, is that this infiltration of Congress is happening in part through organizations like the what is it? The Democratic, what is it called?
Yeah, the Justice Democrats. Yeah.
Justice Democrats, exactly. So they go and they get, let's face it, she's pretty, she can speak well, she shows well on television, but she is ignorant. I'm not saying she's stupid, she's ignorant. She's never run a company, she's never organized.
Yeah, I don't have any sort of hatred or disdain for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez personally,
Right.
because I think she's being used in the same way that her district is being fooled into believing that she is their representative. I don't think she's really representing them. I think that the people behind her are representing them, and they're not representing them. They're representing their own interests. So it's a kind of a bait and switch, right? We're going to pretend that this is your candidate, and then whoop, actually, nope, we're the candidates.
Yeah. And what do we really know about this guy, Zach Exley? Because I don't think he's the mastermind either. I think the way these true mastermind people sort of work is that they hire a guy who hires a guy who puts together a company that hires a bunch of guys that finds a woman to go to Congress, and that way it's almost impossible.
That's why I initially thought it was Cenk, because Cenk owns a big business, right? He owns the Young Turks. That's his company, right? That's his big thing. So, or I don't know if he owns it outright, but that
he's the front man for sure.
Yeah, he created it. So I thought, well, he's pretty good at this kind of thing, of running these things. He's kind of got probably some kind of complex, mastermind complex. But he is a bit of a two-bit thug. If you listen to him talk, he's like Turkish Fred Flintstone, and I call him. Well, but I thought, okay, so. But a guy who knows he's not the smartest guy and not going to maybe be able to accomplish the tasks he wants to accomplish, and he's a busy guy, he can't do all that stuff. He's going to bring in the smartest guys, right? So he could bring in Saikat Chakrabarti and Zach Exley and these other guys from the Bernie campaign, which is where he got them. Mm-hmm. And they could maybe implement his diabolical plan. But it really, if you go back to the earliest videos, it's Zach Exley's plan. It's implemented by Zach Exley and Saikat Chakrabarti, and it's promoted through the Young Turks, right? Now, I think that there was some kind of power struggle. Cenk got ousted from Justice Democrats because even though he kind of invented Justice Democrats, there was actually two groups. One was called Brand New Congress, and that was
Right.
developed by Saikat Chakrabarty, and then he kind of dropped that in lieu of Justice Democrats, which was Cenk's thing, because I think Cenk had the network, the Young Turks network to jumpstart it. They ousted Cenk because Cenk had said something about women, something super, super, gross about women. It came out, and they were like, okay, you got to leave our group. But I think that might have been a power play because once you have control of congressmen, once you have actual control of congressmen, you've got a bit of power in the United States. And if you got a bit of power in the United States, you got a bit of power in the world, and who doesn't want to control that? So I think there was a little bit of a power struggle there. I don't know exactly what happened, but I did make the assertion in my video that Cenk still had some kind of influence over these people. And his nephew, who has this Twitch station, he's just a real a-hole, kind of like a douchey guy. He's like, criticizing every aspect of my video. Like, look at that dot on the wall. What an idiot. Look at the dot on the wall. Just crazy stuff. He's hilarious, actually. He goes on screaming and yelling about me. And he gets to that part and he goes, well, of course, Cenk still has, influence over these guys. Of course he does, in his like, crazy hyper voice. And I just thought, like, don't say that, man. Like, you're not helping your case because people, I don't know if anything's illegal here. What I do know is that if anyone in the country is aware that their congressman is actually just a facade and the people that represent them they've never heard of, they're not going to be very happy about it.
I mean,
I don't know about
frankly,
the people,
that's
the 14th
probably
New York,
most of Congress is really what.
Well, that's what a lot of
comes
people
down
are
to.
saying.
Yes, the thing that you've really shined a spotlight on in your video, Chris, is that they're lying to us and they're trying to make us think that this is some sort of a grassroots, Ocasio-Cortez was the right woman at the right time and she really represents people in Queens
It was
and the Bronx.
manufactured. The whole thing was manufactured.
Right. It's a focus group, demographic-driven power play to, get into Congress there. And my concern is this infiltration. I mean, I don't think we should have people being sworn into Congress on anything but the Constitution, no Quran, and if that means no Bible, I'm willing to agree to that. But we should be holding the Constitution above all else in Congress, the separation of church and state and all that. I don't think we should allow any religious stuff to come in to the law. It's about the law of the land.
Well, let me back you up on the Islamic thing because even though I don't really see the direct connection between the document you showed me and what's happening here, what I can say is one of these guys called me. All right, one of the guys that is connected to Justice Democrats. He knows all those guys. A few people called me actually because these were all people who they were basically saying, like, for one reason or another they disagreed with something that they were doing. They mainly bought everything the Young Turks were saying. They mainly bought everything the Justice Democrats were saying, but they maybe had one issue with them, and they said, look, they need to be stopped because of this one issue.
Really?
And one guy was calling me and he was saying, look, I don't agree with their Israel position. Right? They've got this anti-Israeli position that I don't agree with. Ilhan Omar, is obviously saying the anti-Semitic stuff. AOC has said, I don't really agree with Israel. I agree with Palestine, but I'm not sure why because I don't know anything about this. You remember that? And this guy was like, this is their position. This is their position. And that makes sense to me. I mean, with Cenk and the Young Turks, I don't know if you know the history of the name the Young Turks, but they get that from an organization that took over Turkey in the early 20th century, and then they ended up committing the Armenian genocide, killing 1.5 million Christian Armenians, brutally killed these people, and Cenk Uygur takes the name of his company from that group. That to me is a little bit mental.
Yeah, I don't know much
that
about Cenk Uygur other than seeing him, sometimes on YouTube and yelling at Alex Jones and stuff like that. It doesn't sound good.
That's his claim to fame. No, it's not good. And this guy, this other guy, Saikat, he's got on his shirt this image of this guy, Subhas Chandra Bose. And Subhas Chandra Bose was, I found a quote from him saying something like, what we really need in India is a synergy between Nazism and communism, and he called himself a socialist,
Wow.
and this guy Saikat Chakrabarti calls himself a socialist, and he wears this guy's face on his shirt. And there's people who defend this guy. There's people who have said to me, "Look, this guy's a national hero in India. Every Indian thinks this guy's a hero. A lot of them don't even know about his sort of, more fascistic, philosophical side." And I said, "Okay, well, maybe he's just wearing the shirt. But you know what? Look, I have this, right? This is my YouTube channel. I named the channel Mr. Reagan. I did that deliberately. I knew what I was doing.
Right.
I don't know every aspect of Reagan's life, sure, but I
you
know
support
enough.
Ronald Reagan in a general sense.
I know enough about Reagan to know, to put his face on my logo.
Right.
I think this guy knows enough about Chandra Bose to put his face on his shirt, and it's not even just his face on his shirt. It's like a Che Guevara style, shirt. I think he knows what he's doing when he puts that on there.
These people consider themselves revolutionaries, right, Chris? That's what they want.
They
is
call
to
themselves
blow
that,
up the government and make a new socialist plan where the government pays for a living wage for those who are unwilling to work, and free health care for everyone, and all this stuff. The thing that bothers
kill all
me,
the parting cows.
right? The thing that bothers me is that it seems to be the argument of like a 10-year-old, someone who says, "Hey, we have all this money for unlimited wars. Why don't we make college free and Medicare for all and all this?" The fact is, we don't have money for unlimited wars, and while offering college to people who can't afford it makes a lot of sense to lift up our entire country, I'm really more concerned with stamping out the type of corruption that we see from this FBI bust in people who are already millionaires bribing colleges to get their stupid children into stupid colleges. And then we see the same people who are touting the benefits of socialism and economic equality. Here they are funneling $885,000 from PACs that they control illegally to LLCs.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're not being hypocritical. They're not being hypocritical because every person that has any power back at the USSR was taking bribes.
Right.
They were corrupt. The whole system was corrupt. So these guys are just practicing communism before it strikes, before it hits here in America, right? They're playing the game already.
Yeah, they are. The video that you've created about this is so important, and that's the reason why I wanted to have you on, so we could talk about it and to share it with my audience, so anyone who hasn't seen it or hasn't yet subscribed to the Mr. Reagan channel on YouTube, they can go and do that. The other thing that I always like to remind people of, Chris also has a Patreon page. So people can go over to patreon.com/Mr. Reagan, no period there, and you can sponsor Chris and what he's doing. It's so important that people sponsor this type of independent journalism, because we're never going to hear about this on MSNBC or CNN or Fox or any of these billionaire corporations that are driven by advertising. They're owned by foreign investors who maybe they want this to happen. I presume you're on Twitter as well, right, Chris?
I've actually just started Twitter. Yeah, I wasn't on Twitter for a long time, but I got on there just before I started doing this. I started posting a little bit more, and it really took off through Twitter, which I think was important. Yeah, a lot of people contacted me through Twitter.
At Mr. Reagan on Twitter?
No, I think it's at Mr. Reagan USA. I think that's what it is.
Okay, great. Oh, there you are. Yes, I see you there on Twitter. So people can follow you on Twitter as well. I don't know if you're aware of this, Chris, but Twitter is owned, I should say more Twitter stock is owned by Al Walid bin Talal, the Saudi Arabian royal, than Jack Dorsey. So it's interesting to see when people who support President Trump and are conservatives like Laura Loomer get booted off of Twitter for saying things like Ilhan Omar hates Jews and is aligned with terrorist organizations, which...
Is that why she got kicked off?
That's why she got kicked off, but yet Farrakhan can say he's anti-termite and kill all the Jews can trend on Twitter. That's no problem.
Right.
So it's super important that independent voices like yours have our attention. Now, what was it about the explanatory memorandum that you felt was not so connected to this story?
Well, it's not that I don't think it's I don't see the direct connection. I do see the potential connection, and
Right.
let me explain what the potential connection I see. One of the guys that called me, he said he was concerned about the Jewish thing, their position on Israel, and this kind of stuff.
The
He
Justice
also
Democrats' position on Israel.
Justice
They're
Democrats
anti-Israel, anti-Jewish.
and the TYT and the Young Turks, and but he also said something really fascinating. I thought he said, "Look, these guys all talk about how they want to get money out of government, how they want to get corporate influence out of government, and yet they work with these nonprofit organizations with a lot of money and influence. And like you'll get somebody like, oh God, what is it? MoveOn.org. He said they'll work with MoveOn, and MoveOn will funnel tons of money into their campaign, through these small money donations. But they have this network where they can just bring money in. So now the candidate is beholden to the MoveOn's wishes in the same way that somebody might be beholden to a corporate interest. So he's like, you still have these big money groups coming in and wielding influence, but it's just maybe a different group. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just a different kind of group wielding influence. So he's like, I mean, to me, that's totally hypocritical. So it can be any group wielding influence, including groups associated with the kind of thing that you're talking about. And I think that's a lot more common on the left, because I always call the left like sort of a patchwork quilt of principles, right? We have, on the right, we have principles. On the left, they have environmentalism, they have feminism, they have Black Lives Matter. I think Black Lives Matter cares about the environmentalists, cares about the feminists. Do you think the feminists care that much about they might a little, there might be a little crossover, but for the most part, the feminists focus on the feminism. The environmentalists focus on the environmentalism. The Black Lives Matter people focus on their stuff. They don't really care. They just have all agreed, let's vote Democrat because that person will give us candy, right? And you're talking about, it's like a children's thing. I look at it like a school election, where one guy's like, look, I'm going to talk to the teachers to try to get something, good for our education. The other guy comes on, screw that. I want a video game room. I want gumball machines in every classroom. I want pizza every lunch.
10 more minutes of recess. Yeah.
Yeah, and he gets elected because he's giving everybody free stuff. And it's like, well, maybe you're probably not going to have the power to do that, once you get there. And it's the same with the left, especially the progressives. We're going to give you candy. We're going to give you candy. It's like, we don't have enough money for that candy, guys. That'll last about a year, and then you're in Venezuela.
Right. Now, of course, Ocasio-Cortez has been so closely associated with the Green New Deal, and, she's good at selling it. She says, after World War II, we were able to rally as a nation, and when JFK said we have to go to the moon, everybody went and did it. They've released this map of a proposed high-speed rail network that, despite the fact that she doesn't even want to ride on Amtrak between New York and D.C., which I can tell you from personal experience is way better than taking the plane, we've got this high-speed rail map that represents, first of all, traveling around the country at somewhere between 1/2 and 1/3 the speed of a modern jet. And also, you're there in California, where they've just announced the termination of a high-speed rail project that, I don't know if people can see this, but that was supposed to go from Los Angeles to San Francisco, which is a small fraction of what's being displayed here. And they were not able to successfully do that, not because of any technological barriers, but because the United States is so populous now that the land required to build such a high-speed rail network is unavailable. So, what do we think about Ocasio-Cortez proposing such a pie-in-the-sky, unrealistic plan, and yet so many people thinking it's a great thing and she's a genius?
Well, I love the obvious response that people have is like, well, that's going to be fun for Hawaii, when we get rid of the planes,
right?
And but also, I mean, look where it goes. Look where it goes. This is going to be a difficult thing to get around. I mean, you can land a plane pretty much anywhere in the country. The high-speed rail, you have to go to one of the points and then move over. It's just, a plane, airplanes, they're run by private companies. They got to clean them. They got to keep them up. I don't know if, how often you go into a publicly owned building, like a government building. They're not the cleanest, loveliest places in the world. I mean, I don't really want to ride public transportation everywhere all the time. It's going to be completely full of people. It's going to smell terrible. Literally everyone, from the richest people to the poorest people, will have to ride in the same cars, and that's that's the communist dream, right?
Right.
Everybody's equalized.
You're
We have
right.
no, it is this is all part of the communist idea. Everybody rides in the same train. It's like, no, man, I want my private jet. I can't afford it myself, but one day.
Well, why didn't she propose, for me, the plan would have been more appealing if she had said, hey, you know what? I spent the first 2 months in Congress meeting with Elon Musk, meeting with the Boring Company, and we're going to make a big push for this hyper tube. What is the thing that he's got? The Hyperloop.
Yeah.
And at least talk about some new, like, why the hell do we want to propose a technology that travels around at 1/3 the speed that we can currently travel around? I mean, I'm all for protecting the environment, but what we need is someone who has a practical approach to organizing huge projects and implementing technology and understanding industry and understanding that, refining an industry might be better. How about a 10-year plan to increase the efficiency of jets? And how can we even talk about pollution and the environment? I mean, she's so fixated on carbon dioxide, we can't even bring up that plants require carbon dioxide in order to live, or we're climate deniers, we're conspiracy theorists, we're not even given a platform to speak. I would have preferred to see a plan that says, hey, over 10 years, we're going to offer tax incentives to airlines that phase in some new type of technology that increases efficiency, and then have some roadmap for this.
I mean, honestly, I think that the market system is going to fix all these issues. I mean, we're growing technologically so quickly. I mean, everything's so crazy different from when I was a kid. We had one of those like beige phones that was on the wall that had like a super long cord that you could go in the other room.
Exactly.
I mean, everything's different now. I mean, we live in a different world than we did 20 years ago. And we're going to live in a different world 20 years from now than we live in today. And her idea of, okay, well, this is going to work. You don't know what you're talking about. Look, first of all, let the market system take care of it. Let the markets take care of it. Secondly, if you're going to have an engineering project, a massive engineering project, let's say a border wall, for instance, get a guy in construction, to maybe build it. Maybe somebody who knows a little bit something about it.
Or
right?
at least
Who's
to talk
known
to you
for
about the plan.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about Trump, obviously.
Yes.
Right? Get somebody from the private sector who knows what they're doing, who've done massive projects before. Get them on the project so that it can be done efficiently, effectively, and under budget. Don't get like the LA project, the LA to San Francisco project, whatever. That's a perfect example of government waste and inefficiency.
Yes.
I mean, you want to do that and you want to expand it to the entire country. Well, that project went pretty much bankrupt. So then you want to expand that bankruptcy program throughout the country. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
Love
it's
that
been
idea.
a huge disaster for sure. So yeah, I mean, again, she's quite adept at sort of wrapping this turd in a attractive piece of wrapping paper, which is environmentalism. So if you're against this plan, obviously you're an anti-environmental, climate denier. Right. Now, I don't know if you know this, Chris,
I'm going to do a whole video on the climate denier thing and why I think a lot of that is just, it's all hype. It's all extremist scare tactics. I'm gonna do a whole video on that. I'm gonna get clips from every physicist I can find. I'm gonna do a bunch of research on that. That's gonna be one of my next videos I'm gonna do. I've been wanting to do that for a while, but this thing came up, and I thought, okay, this thing's gonna explode. I have to expose this. So.
Well, I hope that you will take the next bit of information into consideration when you're making that, because I noticed in some of the conversation about this Green New Deal, they did not rule out the concept of a carbon tax. They want us all very focused on this idea that the production of carbon dioxide is going to destroy the world. Forget about sulfur monoxide, forget about mercury, forget about aerosolized aluminum being injected into the ionosphere to turn it into a plasma so that it's more conductive for experiments with HARP and things like this. We don't even want to know what effects that has on human health, but stop making all that damn carbon dioxide. You're exhaling too much, Chris. One of the biggest proponents of this was, of course, Al Gore with his movie, The Inconvenient
he got rich off
Truth.
this for sure. Yeah.
Right. So there's something
he got rich off this.
They had the Chicago Climate Exchange, which was a very early carbon credit exchange created by none other than Al Gore. and Richard Sandor. Now, this was...
Please tell me that this
it's a scam.
that this failed miserably.
It did.
Yeah.
It's a scam.
I remember. I actually vaguely remember this. I remember this because he was accused of scamming everybody. Yeah, this is,
Yes.
and people were pissed. Yeah.
Right. So they basically want to tax you for the gas that comes out of your mouth for the simple function of being alive. They don't want to talk about lead in the water in Flint, Michigan, or all of the pollutants. Why doesn't Ocasio-Cortez have some plan for what we can do in Fukushima, which is potentially sending radioactive fish to California? There's all kinds of things.
You know, the left is great. The left is great about hyping things that don't really matter.
Exactly.
You know, oh, Trump, Russian collusion. Trump's sitting there going, I'm sorry, what? He's like, he's got all these like affairs and stuff he's trying to cover up. He's like, yeah, keep on the Russian collusion thing. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, keep looking that up. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, can you believe they think I'm the Russian collusion thing? Yeah, keep looking at that. Keep looking at that. You know, he loves the Russian collusion thing because they're, you know, if they were smart, they'd be like, you know, Russian collusion's nothing. Let's look into maybe some other shady things that he's doing, and that maybe could get him on something. But they're so distracted with this Russian collusion. I think they're finally figuring it out. That
I personally have a problem with this notion of we're going to investigate someone until we find something to prosecute them for. We're all supposed to
that's
enjoy
huge.
innocence
This is so
until
unethical.
proven
Yeah.
guilty. But Adam Schiff seems to think you can just investigate someone and people that he knows and people that he's done business with until you can put pressure on them and get them to say something that'll create some kind of crime to put the guy into
this
prison.
is called persecution, not prosecution.
Yes.
Right? They're persecuting all these people. I think it's called something like 5 felonies a day or something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah.
The basic premise of the book is that the laws are so crazy in America with so much legislation that you could actually commit felonies and not even know that you did it just because, you know, by trying to honestly run a company, and they can get you on that just because there's so many laws on the books. So yeah, they can get them on something for sure, probably.
Well, I think it was, maybe it was J. Edgar Hoover who said, show me the man and I'll show you the crime, meaning, yeah, they can basically come up with anything. So yeah, take a look at the Chicago climate exchange, and there are other things like this. There's an international climate exchange now, and I'm just very interested to see all these people who are pushing these different plans, but yet unwilling. The concept of settled science, that's another thing that's a real hot button for me, Chris. You know, that comes from lawyers and from the concept of settled law. When they've argued about something and come to a conclusion, they considered it settled law. But of course, is it totally inconceivable that scientists could make some discovery about space or the core of the Earth or gravity or something we don't know yet that might fundamentally change our understanding of the operation of the planet?
Of course.
They don't want you looking at
I'll give you my take. I'll give you my take on climate change just real quick.
Sure.
The planet's been hotter in the past, right? They can test for this. You know, there's consensus on this as well, and the planet was greener back then, right? If you look at, I think it's Iceland, they had like a barren island, you know, pretty much for the entirety of written history. You know, it was barren, no trees, no forests. And in like the last 50 years, they started trying to plant trees. And I've seen interviews with these guys where they're like, this could not, they now have forests. They now have big forests. And they go, this could not have happened without climate change. And they're like that, you know, everybody's like, climate change is catastrophic. It's going to ruin the planet. What if it actually makes the planet better? You know, more carbon dioxide is food for plants.
Right.
You know, a lot of plants like warmer environments. You know, so palm trees grow slightly further north than Los Angeles. Not the end of the world.
Right. I mean, what you're saying makes sense. It's there's a certain amount of climate change that just happens as a result of the Earth continuing to exist. And then the question is, to what extent is human activity having a detrimental effect on the environment?
And that is unsettled. That is absolutely unsettled.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's just no such thing as settled science. I mean, you know, go ask the guys who came up with quantum physics and all of the traditional physicists who laughed at them and said they were crazy. So do we have any kind of insight, Chris, as to what will happen next with Saikat Chakrabarty? I mean, we've heard about these payments to the company that he owned that are coming under scrutiny, but how many times have we heard about politicians who have improperly handled funds and nothing has happened to them? This is just, you know, the millennial version of it right here, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's three possibilities. He either goes to jail, right? They get him on something. He actually didn't do anything, and it just looks like he did something because he's new at this. You know, it's possible that he did something that was weird but not illegal, but people are just like, okay, throw up some red flags, right? So maybe he did something completely innocent. I'm giving him benefit of the doubt, right? He's not guilty till proven innocent, innocent till proven guilty. Possibly he did nothing.
Yes.
Third possibility, that he's guilty as hell and Pelosi, for whatever reason, bails him out. You know, one of these guys bails him out, figures out a way to rig the system for him. Right. Fourth possibility is that, he gets out of it somehow. Either he gets out of it because he's innocent, or he gets out of it because somebody rigs it so he gets out. He keeps running these campaigns. He keeps trying to get people in, and we get the word out about what they're doing. Because I think that is actually the solution to fight these guys. The more people know about this organization specifically, running candidates and trying to control a big section of Congress, the less people will want those people in office. So if you're running against one of those people, all you will have to do at some point, if we can demonize them enough, which I think that they're well deserving of being demonized, if we can make it clear that these guys have nefarious intent, all you should be able to do is say, this person is controlled by Justice Democrats, my opponents, being controlled by them, and everybody would be like, well, we're not voting for them. They're associated with those scumbags. And you know what? I don't think we should. My dad had this great idea. He goes, from now on, people should stop referring to her as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They need to start referring to her by Saikat Chakrabarty's puppet, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of a mouthful. I don't know if people are going to. But I was thinking maybe Alexandria Puppet or Cortez. Alexandria Puppet Cortez. Maybe that's her new name, right?
Yeah.
Something to get people to know, what's going on.
Well, we'll keep working on that. We need something catchy, but we see
workshop it. Yeah.
We see Saikat here wearing the Bose, whatever that guy's name is, T-shirt, and I agree with you. I think that someone as smart and politically motivated as him doesn't just put such a historic and important political revolutionary on his T-shirt for no reason at all.
Yeah, at first I thought it was his own face.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a narcissist. He's got his own. I did a little research. I figured out who it was, but it's like, because he's got the same glasses as the guy and everything.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, it's getting a little bit late here on the East Coast, and I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to speak with me. I think the video that you've put together and the information that you have assembled, you were in the right place at the right time, and you are, of course, the right guy. I got to thank you for going to CPAC and for doing all the things that you do that caused you to meet the people and make the connections that you made. People should go over to the Mr. Reagan YouTube channel and become a subscriber there to watch all of the videos that Chris is going to be coming out with. He's got 1.3 million views on that YouTube video, and let me guess, it's probably been demonetized or it's considered not suitable for most advertisers. So people might also want to consider going over to patreon.com/Mr. Reagan and become a sponsor of Chris over there. While you're on Patreon, please also check out Crowdsource the Truth at patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. Of course, this show is viewer sponsored, so I can't continue doing what I'm doing without the support of the viewers. Chris, you're doing a great job. Is there anything you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I just want to say thank you. That is the best plug, the most generous plug I've ever got from all the interviews I've done.
I like to do that because, look, what we're trying to do is we're trying to fight a multi-billion-dollar machine, not just the politics, but the media. They are so connected, so embedded. What you've pointed out about Cenk Unger, I can't even pronounce the guy's name, but the Young Turks, you know, it's a sinister, I wonder who is providing the money to the Young Turks and for what purpose, and all these layers. People have accused me of all kinds of stuff. The money that funds Crowdsource the Truth comes from the individual viewers. And after I left my career in Hollywood, I had a client in Dubai that stiffed me out of an amount of money that just caused me to financially collapse. And I said to myself, you know, I'd rather have, instead of one person giving me $400,000, I'd rather have 400,000 people giving me $1, because I don't want
I'm exactly the same.
I don't want that
It's such a
undue economic
democratic
influence.
system. It's such a democratic system. If you're doing well with these, if you're producing things that people feel are valuable,
Yes.
you get paid. And
Right.
if you don't, you just die on the vine. And I think that's how life should be, more or less. You know,
Yes.
it'll drive you toward doing the right, doing the right content. And you got a great show here, man. I like how you do the internet stuff up, on the side, and it's
Thanks.
great. You got a
Thanks.
great thing.
I'm glad you like it. And Chris, you're certainly welcome back anytime. I appreciate what you're doing on the Mr. Reagan YouTube channel and on your Patreon channel. Keep up the great work, and thanks for coming on tonight. So glad to see you, man. Thanks to everybody for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. See you then.